Hello and welcome to Authors in Espresso. I'm your host, Nadia Gilkes, and we are here with another author spotlight. This one I'm really excited about. A friend of mine, you know, my life is Toastmasters, football, and the artist Pink, so I know him from Toastmasters. With 25 years as a chemical engineer and nearly 2 decades of leadership as a supervisor at the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, Len brings a rare analytical clarity to the deeply human work of personal transformation. But his influence reaches far beyond the lab or the office. As the founder of Kinetic Mind LLC, Len helps individuals cut through the noise, break through internal barriers, and focus on what truly matters in their lives. He is also the author of two compelling books: his memoir, Split Up by the Sea, and the self-development guide, Break the Bricks, Breakthrough to Find the Real You. Len's passion for communication and growth extends onto the stage as well. An active competitor in Toastmasters International, he reached the semifinals this year, demonstrating not only mastery of message, but the courage to be seen and heard. Beyond the microphone, Len brings discipline and inspiration together through his YouTube channel, where he shares martial arts instruction and motivational insights designed to strengthen both body and mind. And perhaps most inspiring of all, personal growth is a family affair. Len, his wife Kelly, and their children are all proud members of Toastmasters International, living proof that transformation, communication, and leadership can be shared across generations. Please help me welcome Len Tran. How are you? Thank you for joining in today.
Good evening, Nadia. I'm doing great, and thank you so much for having me on your show.
Yes, it's been hard to get our schedules together, but we are finally united in authorship.
Yes.
And I just want to say I am so proud of your book. It's been so amazing hearing about your journey. I've heard your speeches. I've been able to read some of your book, and it's just inspirational. So I can't wait to dive in.
Thank you.
So, for those who may not know your story, which is your transition to the United States, can you take us back to 1982 and share what it was like in Vietnam after the fall of Saigon and what led you and your father to come to the United States?
Yes, certainly. It all started in 1975, April 30th, when Saigon fell. And so when the new government took over, our lives changed. Millions of Vietnamese lives changed overnight. And so we endure that kind of life from all the way to from 1975 all the way to 1982, which was 7 years later. And then one day, my father grabbed me by the hand and he said, "Len, let's go to your uncle." At that time, we were living in the countryside, and he said, "Let's go to the city and visit your uncle." And I was like, you know what? Wherever you take me, I'll go with you. When you live in the countryside, all you do is you take care of the pigs and the chickens. And I was like, I'm done with that. I just want to go wherever Dad want to take me. I thought that Dad is gonna take the entire family, but little did I know. And he said, "No, it's just gonna be me and you." And then that afternoon, and I still remember it so clearly. And basically, that is the opening of my book. And so he held my hand, walked along the beach that late afternoon to this strange house that I'd never been to before. And then he said, "Okay, Len, just go have dinner, and then you're gonna be sleeping here until tomorrow. We're gonna be hopping on a boat." And I was like, "What? That's pretty strange. Usually, we'll hop on a boat and just go straight to the city right away because it normally takes around like half a day." And so while I was having my dinner, Dad was eating with people who I have never met before, and it looks like they were talking in secrecy. And after they were gone, Dad and I fell asleep. And right at dawn, some strangers just picked me up from the floor, put me on his shoulder, and then walked across the beach and just threw me into the boat. And then I just screamed. I said, "Dad!" And he covered my mouth and he said, "Shut up! You're gonna get us killed."
Mm.
And when he walked away, I was about to hold on to the edge of the boat and just jump right off. And then I heard a voice, "Len." sit down. And I looked up and it was Dad. So I sat down and right in front of me were women and children while all the men were actually helping to push the boat out to sea. And then when the boat gained buoyancy, that's when all the men jumped into the boat and the captain revved up his engine and started going out as fast as he could. And then suddenly when the land was vanished from our sight, the captain said, "Let the journey begin.
Mm.
We are going to find freedom." And I was like, I mean, that time I was 7, almost 8 years old. I was like, freedom? What freedom? So I turned to Dad. I was like, Dad, I thought we were supposed to go see our uncle. What's the captain talking about? What freedom? And then I remember vividly, from the corner of his eyes, he was brimming with tears, and he didn't even want to say a word. At that point, I didn't want to ask any further, and I'm just sitting in a boat, with strangers, and with my dad looking so lost, and all I just want to do at that point was just, hold my dad's arm and bury my face onto his chest, and wherever that he want to take me, I just want to be with the person who I love most. So little did I know, that trip was actually the journey to find freedom, that had us lost for 21 days at sea. Basically, we didn't have a compass. We were just going around in circles, and we were meeting fishermen from China. And at that time, because they witnessed so many immigrants like us, boat people like us, that they knew who we were, but they didn't want to get close to us either because they were afraid that we might take over their ship, and out of precaution, they wanted to help, but they were afraid as well. So what they did was they threw cookies and the food that they have in a plastic bag, into the water, and also fuel as well. And then we
Wow,
would
how lovely.
slowly approach it, yeah, and pick up the food and the fuel. And that's how we were able to survive for 21 days until we finally got rescued and brought to land.
I can't imagine the fear of trying to go to freedom. You're trying to shield your young child from the truth, and then you're stuck at sea. Through all of that, what was some of the most vivid memories that you have from that 21 days, aside from those passing by trying to help you? And how did the captain eventually find his way?
So the first 5 days was basically chaotic, right? We ran out of food, fuel, and water. The three necessity that we need to survive. I mean, without fuel, the boat's not gonna go anywhere. It doesn't matter, we can eat or not, but let alone we didn't even have water or food. So there were people actually on the boat. It was chaos going on, and some people wanted to return home. Others be like, no, we can't return home, but we're gonna return home. We're gonna be dead anyway, because once they catch us, they're gonna kill us anyway. And I remember, when Dad said, "No, we have to stay the course," and actually, that line in itself there helped me turn into a Toastmaster speech. And if we have time, we're gonna talk about that later. But those 5 days, we thought that we gonna die, and then until on day 6, when the whole entire boat was ready, to let Mother Nature just swallow us. And I remember vividly dark clouds was approaching our boat. And when the wind was picking up, the waves were splashing onto the side of the boat, with salt water spraying and stinging our faces. We thought this is it. The boat was just rocking profusely. And then amazingly, when the cloud was right on top of us, if pouring rain came down, and we're like, this is exactly what we needed. And I
Mm.
remember people were grabbing, pots and pans, and this is a very small boat with 25 of us. If I didn't mention that earlier, 25 of us, we grabbed pots and pans and cupped our hands just to drink as much water as we could. And within a few minutes, that's when the clouds parted away, and we saw sunlight.
Mm.
There were people on the boat. I don't remember, but there were people on the boat that mentioned that some saw God. My background is Buddhism. Some saw the later Buddha, the Lady Buddha, which is very famous in the Vietnamese culture, who we pray to. And it was a miracle because if it wasn't for that rain, I don't think we can even, muster the courage to continue or even have the strength to continue for another day. And because of that, we had the strength, and the captain said, "Okay, let's keep on going." And since we didn't have the compass, but lucky enough, we keep on going to the point where we actually saw land, and that's when he said, "Okay, let's go along the coastline in case of anything. We can at least just a dock and whatever land that we need to rest." And lucky because of that, we were able to get into land, fish, and start a fire and cook that way.
Mm. Oh, wow. I was gonna say that dark cloud, sometimes the dark cloud is your lifeline.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
don't even think about it that like that,
right.
but it was like a message, like, you're going to have everything you need for this journey. That's incredible. So you finally make it to the US, and how long does that journey take approximately?
Yeah, so when we were rescued in Hong Kong, China, so back then in the 1980s, the Hong Kong was pretty much under the British control, British government. So we stayed in Hong Kong for 3 months, and then after that, after we passed the interview there, they sent us to the Philippines. We stayed in the refugee camp in the Philippines for another 5 months. So while I was staying in the Philippines, they they taught my dad, and including myself, well, for my dad, they taught him English. At the same time, they also taught him how to work at a certain job so that he could practice his English. For kids like myself, is basically learning hello, goodbye, and just conversational English that so that we can be prepared once we get to America. And so after 5 months 3 months in Hong Kong, 5 months in the Philippines, and we finally arrived to the Big Apple, New York City, and we stay in Manhattan. And I remember the hotel that we stayed in near Fifth Avenue, and it was gorgeous. Like I was like, oh my goodness, this is beautiful. Up until the next morning when the social worker took both of us to the South Bronx, and I was like, "Whoa, this is different, Dad. Why can't we stay in the old home?" But the South Bronx in the 1980s was different. It's dilapidated. You get torn down buildings. It was chaotic back in the 80s, but basically that was the only place where immigrants like myself were placed in.
Yeah. It's so funny because you come to the US for a better life, and then you wind up in the Bronx, and you start questioning everything.
That's right.
And I love this story because it sounds like or this is what people would envision for the 20s and the 30s, but this was just a generation ago. So I think it's so important for people to know how recently people are making these great strides to get to the United States and what it takes to get here. I'm just so appreciative of you sharing your story. What made you feel like this was the time? I know your book is a couple years old now, but what made you feel like this was the time to write about it?
So my daughter now is 22, almost 23 years old now. While she was growing up, I every time when I put her to bed, instead of just read her a book, I was like, let me tell her my stories. Let me tell her about how dad and her grandpa came to America, because during that time it was just only both of us, and I keep retelling her the story over and over again. And I hope, part of it is, her knowing our background, that, don't take, your life for granted, because, both your dad and your grandpa worked pretty hard, just so that, we can give you this life. And it just so funny that 3 years ago, she came home from one day from her university, and she said, "Oh, Dad, you know what? By the way, my friend, who's Vietnamese, she's like, my friend, her dad was boat people, Dad." I was like, "Wait, I've been telling you that I'm also boat people, you know?" And it's just so funny like that, right? When as a parent, you tell your kids, and they be like, "Yeah, yeah, 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 yeah," it goes one ear out the other ear. But when someone tells them, it just sticks somehow, right?
Right.
And I was like, "Oh, I've been telling you that story, and, just so you can appreciate, us as an immigrant. When we come here, we actually, part of society. It is us who comes here and also, share our culture, and then, make the society even, better based on how much we can contribute to it. Um, and so I decided, I said, let me just write a book about it, instead of keep telling my daughter. So in case if one day she forgets or whatever, the book is gonna be there. It's gonna be an evergreen thing that she can reach into to it and read it, or even her kids, or uh, my grandkids, down the line.
I love that. It literally is your legacy in written form. And there's such a transition from the 7-year-old that was scared with his father on a boat trying to journey here, all the way till now becoming an engineer. So, how did those early years, those formative years, shape who you are today and what made you decide on engineering?
I would say it all started in, and I also share this story in Toastmasters as well. It all started when I was in third grade, when I was living in the South Bronx. I mean, living in the Philippines, it was great and everything that they taught me English, but how much can they teach you in a 5 months time frame, right? And so that incident in third grade, when I was sitting at my desk and the teacher said, "Len, come to the board and fill in this blank." Now, back in the 80s, we have the chalkboard, and this is this sentence with a blank, and you fill in the blank, So the question was, the boy blank the stick, right? I mean, I've learned what the boy is, back in the Philippines. I have no idea what's the stick, let alone it was A, B, C, and D, and I have no idea what even these options even mean, right? And so, when you don't know an answer, most people will pick C, even as a kid, right? So, so when I picked C, the entire class burst out laughing. I said, Why are they laughing?" And then my teacher said, C is swallow. Why would the boy swallow the stick?" I was like, "I don't know." I mean, nowadays when I tell the story, when I get the laugh from people, it's a laugh of, of humor. But when you get, 20, 30 kids laughing at you and while you're standing up there, it just stays with you for a long time, because it's one of those fear that ingrained in me as a young child. And so because of that, I was afraid to always stand in front of the audience again. And I mean, to me, I feel like what better subject to study in college, to stay away from the public eyes, is let's just to be an engineer, so that you could be in the corner doing your math, and if your boss needs you, be like, hey, here goes the answer now, my job's done. So it was for a very long time that I was afraid of being in public, uh, up until up until I would say my 40s, up in my 40s, that I said, you know what, it's time for me to share what I have learned, how much I have endured for being silent and not using my voice, and what kind of platform is it to help me to be courageous enough to share my stories, or to help me, muster up that courage to just speak. And so when I found Toastmasters, it basically changed my life, because I believe that Toastmasters, just so many incredible people in the organization, that are willing to listen to your stories, willing to help you, and help you even refine it. And I've been there for the last 6 years already, and I have seen a tremendous growth, from someone who was so shy and timid to now becoming a confident speaker.
That's the arc, and the way you describe why you went into engineering, that kind of explains why there's so many engineers in Toastmasters.
That's right.
Because you tried to go in to a corner, then you realize, "I have something to say, people need to hear it. Oh, I need some training." And writing a memoir, I feel like it's extremely difficult, and a lot of people shy away from that because you are bringing up such painful memories and you are bearing yourself to the reader. How did you have the courage to go through that process of bringing up these memories, and did you use any kind of therapy, or what other resources did you use to really get you through that journey?
Yeah, I'm glad that you asked. And my very first book, I thought I'm gonna start out, writing something that short, so that I can get maybe 10, 20 pages out and
Oh
give
my
to
goodness.
my friends to read.
And
But
275
it,
pages later.
exactly right. So when I decided to write a memoir, I have no idea of how to do it. But when I reached out to other friends who actually wrote memoirs as well, and they said, just sit down and share your stories. In the beginning, it was extremely hard. It was extremely hard because it's just so much emotions. And what I have learned writing a memoir is that when you feel to your lowest point, when you feel to your low, that's exactly when you should start writing. Because there are days when I tell my wife, I'm like, "Okay, honey, I'm back from work. Let me just grab a bite and then I'll go into my office and start writing." Now, when I feel motivated, it's just weird. I'm sitting, I'm motivated. I'm like, after two paragraphs, I'm kind of stuck. I'm like, what else to write? I mean, I still remember the story, but what else to write? But then on days where I'm having my dinner and suddenly a spark of some memories that happen, eating rice, and I remember, when my dad and I were sitting on the floor eating just plain rice and salt because we couldn't afford to buy meat, just rice and salt. And I was like, I just want to hold that bowl of rice and cry. So I'll finish up my food and I say, honey, I got to run to my room. But when I ran to my room, instead of writing, I actually cry first. And when I cry and I let go all that emotions, then I picked up the computer. Next thing you know, I was like, "Oh my goodness, I just wrote 10 pages already."
Wow.
So what I've learned about writing memoir is you got to let the emotions sink in. You got to really remember what actually happened, and you just play all that scene in your head, and then you translate into the paper. But if you feel excited and everything like that, it's just hard. When I feel excited, I can't write much, and I believe that writing memoirs is all about how much do you want to share to the world? Yeah, how much you want to share to the world, and then at the same time is what kind of emotions that you want your audience to go through with you.
Yes. And we often talk about people are coming down and feeling the lows with you, but then you have to bring them up to feel
Yeah,
the
right,
highs. So how
right.
did you navigate that journey as you're not only feeling it yourself, but trying to evoke that in the reader?
Right. And so I have so many characters in my book. I mean, besides the fact that yeah, I was living with my dad for so many years, but there were other people along my journey who had helped me, to stand back on my feet. Because when both dad and I came to America, he was telling me, he said, when we came in, I was 8. Dad was 24, so he's 32. He's 32 years old, and when we came in, we had nothing, right? We had nothing. The government gave us assistance. They will put us on welfare. And then dad said, America has given me a new opportunity, a new life. I have two hands, two legs. I'm going to go to work. So it was very, very short time, maybe a couple months we're on welfare. And dad said, you know what, I'm going to go find a job at a pizza shop. He was cleaning pots and pans, at a pizza shop. And then at nighttime, at the age of 32, he actually went to school to get his GED. He was like, I'm not shy to sit with 19, 20-year-old kid. I want to get my GED so that I can have my college education. So while dad is doing that, I was staying home alone, learning how to cook at the age of 8. I was cooking rice. I cooked fish, but the cooked ones, the one that in the sardine cans, where I just
Mm,
open it up and saute a
warmed it.
little bit of
Yeah.
salt and pepper. But then also along the way, I had, people who live in that building, who came over to help, who noticed that, dad is a single parent at that time, And every single time when I write, I'm writing a chapter where, I'm bringing people to the low, like you said, and then I bring in another character where, this person helps me, to survive, to become someone better, to take place of my dad. And that's how I transition. I transition from the low to the high of, finding another hero that can help shape my life.
That's beautiful. And so throughout your journey, it sounds like there was a lot of resilience, pride, and community poured into you. And you have gone well, before we transition to your next book, because I don't wanna leave people hanging, but I want them to read it for themselves, but your mom, everyone else does eventually join you or no?
Yes, they did. So it took them almost 10 years later before my mom was sponsored to come to America. But she did the same thing. She basically got all of my siblings onto a boat as well and came here with the same path. The only differences was on her boat, they had a compass. They already got everything all
They had
planned.
made some upgrades in the 10 years.
That's right. 9 years they got the upgrade. They got the compass. They knew the direction of where to go. And so when they were in Hong Kong, we sponsored them straight to America, so they didn't have to go through all the refugee camps.
Nice. That's incredible. So, you've gone from immigrating here, and then you've become an engineer, and you've written your memoir, and now you have turned into a motivational speaker and author. So tell us about your self-help book and how that came about.
Yeah. So for the last 19 years, I have been a supervisor at the Patent and Trademark Office.
That means you're brilliant.
Throughout my years, I have I would say roughly more than 100 employees. And so one day I decided to, write something very short, just to, inspire my employees. And basically I just want to tell them, look, if a guy like me came to America, was so embarrassed, by giving a wrong answer, and later on I was able to be a supervisor, so can you. And so I decided to write something very short, 1 or 2 pages, throwing a few quotes here and there for motivational speakers, and hopefully get them pumped up so that one day they can become supervisors and leaders themselves. And so as I kept on writing, I was like, wait, I keep on putting examples on how I survived 21 days at sea, on how I survived in Hong Kong, the refugee camp, and how I survived 15 years in New York City. Because I mean, I live in the South Bronx in New York City. I went to college also in Harlem, City College of New York in Harlem, which in the 90s was also very bad at that time as well. Imagine going to school and all you hear is gunshots, every morning, that you really have to run to your class before, you're gonna get shot. And I figured, if I can endure all of that, let me put into a book so that, when my employees reads it, they feel as though, Len set an example, guys, and if he can do this, we can do this as well. And then, at the end of the day, it benefits my employees, and I figure it's going to be benefiting for the agency as well. So it took me a good 6 months to write that book. And life is always strange, right? Strange in a good way. That when you do one thing, it just trickles somehow to help you along the way. I never thought of being a motivational speaker, but once I was done with this book, I got employees reading it, I got friends and families reading it, and next thing you know, I got people from other companies. They'd be like, "Hey, Len, please come to our agency, and please talk to us about your book, or even list some of the methods on how to be successful, or how to tame that mind to overcome imposter syndrome." And right now, the my biggest actually talk of all is overcoming imposter syndrome. So
Mm.
yeah, it's one thing that leads to another.
I love that. And I think that just goes across the board in whatever people are trying to do, even if they're not trying to necessarily be a leader, but just in reaching their goals or dreaming bigger for themselves. I think imposter syndrome is so huge right now. And I keep hearing that companies are wanting those leadership messages in their offices. So, what is a nugget or two takeaway for the listener today that you might want to give?
Yeah. So my background is in your introduction was talking about martial arts, and martial arts actually played an extremely big role in my life. At a young age, I was fortunate enough to meet teachers who at that time they knew I was so poor. I was poor, but I was dedicated, right? So when when I would enter these martial arts schools and I be sitting there observing and I'll be in the corner trying to mimic doing what they learning and then the teacher would call me in and they said hey, you want to learn? I was like, yeah, but I don't have any money. But they saw that dedication, so they taught me for free, and I have 3 teachers in my life that actually taught me for free. So it has been my passion that when I have been teaching martial arts now for the last 20 years, and I pretty much have returned to society like how my teachers had taught me, and then I've been teaching for free. In martial arts, what we do is we learn how to stand into a horse stance. It's like you're riding a horse, and that kind of stance in martial art, we say this is your base, this is your foundation, this is how you stay rooted. So I also took a course in neuro-linguistic programming as well. It's basically how can you anchor your mind so that when things happen to you, you get back to that foundation to remind you that you are capable. So the very first thing is I teach people how to get into a horse stance, and I remind them. I said, you see how you get in a horse stance right now? No one can push you because you are anchored, you are rooted, you are the one. So I said every time when you feel like self-doubt or syndrome creeps in, just get into a horse stance and root yourself, pat yourself on the shoulder and said, this is who I am, rooted and ready. So that's the first way to overcome imposter syndrome.
Oh, I love that. And are these the types of messages that you offer on your YouTube channel, or tell us a little more about that?
Yeah, so it's YouTube is also a surprise element as well. I created the YouTube channel actually I would say 12 years ago. And 12 years ago, YouTube was, I would say not as today well known. And so I started a channel so that when my students, because I have a lot of professional students where they travel out and businesses stuff, and I said, hey, when you travel, turn on the video so you can follow along, practice these karate forms so that you won't be bored in the hotel room or that you're not doing anything. And so I recorded videos and I just let it sit there. I haven't touched anything. Surprisingly, last year, out of nowhere, I turned on the YouTube channel again. Now I haven't touched it for 10 years, right? I turned it on. I was like, whoa, I only put like, 5, 10 videos for fun, and I got almost 1,000 subscribers. And there were people
Wow.
requesting, yeah, the people requesting in there. It's like, Sensei, please post some more. And I was like, who are these people? Uh, so one of my students were like, you know what? Why don't you start a true YouTube channel instead of just only doing it for us student? So I decided, okay, fine, I'll record some videos, and surprisingly, within I would say a year and a half now, year and a half, I got up to almost 43,000 subscribers now.
Wow, that's
Yeah, so
incredible.
you just never know whose lives you can touch, and there are people all around the world. Even someone in India. In India, there's this little girl. She actually reached out to me on YouTube, and then she said, Master, I got bullied a lot in school, and not just only your martial art skills have helped me, but I really love to listen to what you say. And right now I'm feeling down. Can you do a video for me? And I was like, oh my goodness. Right when I saw that, I told my wife, I'm like, immediately the very next day, I actually made a video and I posted on YouTube too, specifically just for her and on how to overcome bullies. Because I mean, my entire life living in New York City, especially when your English is not good, you get bullied all the time, and I got bullied for many years, all the way to high school. So I
Mm.
can certainly feel her pain.
Oh, that's beautiful. Well, hopefully everyone that's listening will go and watch those videos because it sounds like there's a lot of power and inspiration there as well. Now, this audience, we do largely talk about the writing process and the publishing process. So, how was your publishing journey? Did you do everything yourself? Did you use a company? And any best practices that you noted?
Yeah, so that's another journey in itself, right? You thought,
Yes.
"Oh my goodness." It's like, "Oh, I write so much and oops, I'm done. What am I supposed to do now?" So, luckily for me, being exposed to, Toastmaster International, you just never know who you're gonna meet. And even though you and I right now talking, you in the West Coast, I'm in the East Coast, and back then when Toastmasters was in person, you're kind of limited. But when the virtual platform actually happened, I was able to meet a couple people in Oklahoma, in Florida, and it was on a Zoom call like this. And it just so happened I shared my story and I told them how about that I'm about to write a book, yada yada yada. The other person just emailed and reached out to me and said, "Oh, are you writing a memoir? I can help you because I also finished mine." And so we got together, we talked, and I was like, "Okay, so which publisher do you use?" And she introduced to another friend. And when I contacted the other person, apparently the other person was also writing her memoir too on how
Wow.
her mom actually was also a Vietnamese person as well, and how
Wow.
came to America, yeah. So I was like, "Oh, great." So I was asking her the difference between traditional publishers versus self-publishing, right? And she was, explaining to me the differences between the two, but I don't want to be long-winded. So, but basically, for if I go the traditional route, she says it's gonna take 3 to 5 years, before they approve, and also they're gonna do a lot of editing, based on their own taste. But if you do, self-publishing, it's basically what you got will help you with the editing process, and then within a few months we're gonna get this published. So I was thinking, I'm like, oh, first of all, I don't want to wait for another 5 years. It's just too long. And second of all, I would love it to be within my words. I mean, I don't want my book to be so sophisticated that is no longer me writing it, right? I
Right.
want to have that authenticity. So I said, all right, let's go with the self-publishing. And she was a publisher, and I said, okay, you are gonna be my publisher. And she helped me through the process, and within I would say 3 months, I got it published. So it went pretty fast.
Wonderful. And that is really the beauty of Toastmasters because people from all walks of life. You need a realtor, you need a chiropractor. There is everybody in the Toastmasters land. And you have gone very far in the ranks, starting from someone who was shy to, as you mentioned, making it to the semifinals this year. So people who aren't in Toastmasters, January begins our contest season for our speaking competition with about 35,000 people all over the world. And then it narrows down to like a final 40 for the semifinals. And then the final eight take the stage in August. And you made it to that top 40. So, what was that speaking journey like? Because you've really grown into yourself as a speaker. And what keeps you going in the competition arena?
Yeah, I still remember the first day when I joined Toastmasters, and I was like, guys, all I want to do is be brave enough to stand in front of the audience, not shake, and just share my story for 5 minutes, and I'll sit back down. Um, Then suddenly, after I'll say maybe 4 or 5 months in, the president of the club came up to me and said, "Len, why don't you compete in the Toastmaster International contest?" I was like, "Oh, okay. What's that?" And it's kind of funny, even though I said, "What's that?" But my mouth accidentally said, "Yes, I'll compete," but my head was like, "What? What were you thinking?" Right? So I got home, I got onto YouTube, and I watched some of these World Toastmasters International World contests, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, my president asking me to compete like you guys, these are world-class speakers." So that's a number one mistake, right? You want to learn, slowly instead of watch these guys and be like, "Whoa, I'm not at that caliber yet." Um, but I was so glad that I did it. I was so glad that I said yes first and then prepared later. because when I got home, I wrote my speech and I tested out, and another person was like, "Wow, that's pretty good. That's pretty good, but you're missing many other good elements." I was like, "Okay, so that means it's bad, right?" Uh, but because of that trial and error, I kind of got addicted to it. I was like, "Wow, this is good because everyone is giving me good evaluation, good feedback." Because and I as a martial artist, this is what I always tell myself: people are there in honesty to help you, right? So when they are there to help you, just don't take it personal, right? Don't take it personal, because whatever that they can give you, just just change it. If you don't like it, then fine. But they are there to genuinely help you. So for me, I'm just receiving whatever whatever clubs that were able to give me the feedback, and every single feedback actually made me become a better speaker, even a better speech writer, because now I can understand. I was like, oh, so that's what you mean when you need the emotional element. Oh, that's what you mean when you have to use this kind of or that kind of gestures, and because of that, it just changed everything. And all it took was that first year, and when I got to the second year, I went all the way up to district. I won district. I didn't make it to semifinal, and I won 4 years in a row. I mean 3 years in a row, and I was like, wow, three years in a row. How can I not get to semi? But for this year was strange. This year I won district, and I was like, oh, you know what? I'm not gonna make it to semifinal again. So I booked a trip to go to Vietnam with my family.
My goodness.
Yeah, and then when I was over there, I received an email, "You made it to the semifinals." I was like, "What? Really?" So yeah, so this year changed everything, and I met so many amazing people, including yourself, that I get
Yes,
to
I finally got to
work.
reach out and touch you
Yeah,
because we've been on video
that's
for
right.
years.
That's right. So
Finally, we're in the same place.
yeah, so you meet amazing competitors, and you also meet amazing Toastmasters members that that we've been meeting on Zoom. So I would say competing in Toastmasters have changed my life.
That's wonderful. I love Toastmasters. I'm a certified junkie. I think I'll be in it for life just because the people that you meet become your family.
Yeah.
So, for that aspiring writer out there who has that imposter syndrome and who is afraid to get started, what words of encouragement would you offer them?
We all have a message, right? Whether you think your message is too small compared to someone else, it doesn't matter. Because at the end of the day, it's about you. If you are thinking about how the other person, has a bigger house, has a bigger paycheck, and it's just so funny that I actually this year's Toastmaster speech, I'm going to talk about that, is because we are too busy comparing ourselves to other people. If you have a message, write it, because you never know who you are going to connect. And there are people who are waiting for your message, because the audience is weird, right? You have some audience who connects better with you, and you have an audience who connects better with other people. But there are billions of people in this world, right? There will be someone who is waiting for you, and focus on that person. So don't hold yourself back. Don't compare to others. If you have that urge to write your book, start now. Start now.
I love that, and I think your YouTube page is a testament to that very notion. Is it was behind the scenes, you didn't even realize it was growing and people were reaching out for more, and now you're basically a YouTube sensation.
Yeah.
And so I do like to leave people with ways to get in contact you. So if you don't mind sharing your social media, website, or YouTube channel, that would be wonderful.
Certainly. So if you go to my karate channel, that will be Continuous Fist, all one word, Continuous Fist. That takes you to my channel. If you go into my motivational channel, that will be Master Your Mind. You just punch in YouTube, Master Your Mind, Len Tran. It'll take you straight to my page. For my website, that will be Len, that's LENV Tran.com. And you can contact me, and I would love to coach you on one-on-one or even speak at your company or agency and show you what it takes to master your mind and focus on what matters most.
And what does your one-on-one coaching entail?
I have clients right now, and you can have I have clients from students all the way to professional professions, as in chiropractors or business owners, and sometimes they don't know that direction on how to move forward because their mind is stopping them. So as a coach, I'll tap into your inner self. Or earlier when I was talking about your foundation, because sometimes you really have to go deep down to your foundation to dig up that drive again. And that's where I come in to help you, is to help you dig up that drive and help you to keep on moving forward and keep the momentum going.
I love that. And then your keynote presentations are structured around imposter syndrome and leadership techniques.
That's right. So
Perfect.
earlier when I was talking about my dad, when he said that quote, "Stay the course," that's basically the foundation of my keynote. Is you got to stay the course. If you want to get there, you got to stay the course. Is how to stay the course is where I come in for the keynote.
And well, one thing I didn't ask you, but I'm burning to know before we go, how soon was it before you and your dad could safely go back to Vietnam after escaping?
Whew. Actually, 2 years ago was the first time that I went back, and that was 40 years later.
Wow. And
40
so your
years
dad
later, yeah.
never was able to go back?
2 years ago, I actually went back with my daughter. I went back
Okay.
with my daughter, was just father and daughter, never had an opportunity to go back with my dad. And so when we went back, my home is still there, but the only thing left was just one of
The
the wall in the back.
Oh my god.
But there was a replica of the boat that we took in 1982, and when I saw that boat, I just couldn't hold
My
back.
goodness.
You know?
I
Yeah.
just about wanna cry. Glad I asked that. And, did I miss anything, or do you have any parting words?
I just want to tell your audience that we all have a message to share. Sometimes people tell me that, "Oh yeah, Len, but look at you. You on a boat. You went through that journey, and that's why it's so powerful to have that story to share with the world." I just want to say, look, we all have stories. We all have stories. We all learn something along the way, and it doesn't matter what story you share. It all points down to what kind of message can you give to the world so that they can become better themselves.
I love that. That's inspiring me because people have been pushing me to write a memoir, and I'm like, "I haven't done anything." But like you said, we all have something to share, and there's somebody waiting on the other side to be inspired, so I love that. Well, that wraps up today's episode of Authors and Espresso. Len, I just want to thank you again for coming on this evening and giving us those inspirational nuggets and sharing your story with us. And the book, again, I don't know if you have the cover nearby, but Split
Yes,
by
I
the
do.
Sea.
So this is
Split
the
up by the
memoir, Split
sea.
by the
Mhm.
Sea, and this is the
Break the
book,
bricks.
Break the Bricks.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you this evening. I appreciate you, and I will be looking for you on YouTube.
Thank you so much for having me tonight, Nadia.
You're welcome.